I am sitting in my office at 9:30 on a Tuesday night, staring at an email from my lawyer that I have read at least 6 times. The subject line says, Family Matter Documentation. But what it really means is that my entire world is about to split in half. 7 years, 80-hour weeks, thousands of sleepless nights building something from absolutely nothing. And now my mom wants me to hand 50% of it to my brother Derek, who has never worked a real day in his entire life. The ultimatum sits in my inbox like a grenade with the pin pulled. Give him half or lose my family forever. Before I tell you how I handled this impossible choice, I want to know where you are watching this from. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you have ever dealt with family expecting you to hand over what you built with your own 2 hands, go ahead and hit that like button and subscribe, because what happened next changed everything about how I saw family loyalty. This story gets intense, so buckle up. Let me take you back to where this all started. I grew up in a family that knew what struggle meant. My parents immigrated here when I was 3 years old, and they worked jobs that broke their bodies just to keep us fed. My dad spent 12 hours a day at a manufacturing plant operating machinery that was probably older than I was. My mom cleaned office buildings from midnight until 6 in the morning, then came home to make us breakfast before we went to school. They never complained. Not once. That was just what you did for your kids. When I was 18, everything changed. Dad was working a double shift because we needed the overtime pay, and a forklift accident took him from us in seconds. No warning, no chance to say goodbye. Just a phone call from the hospital that arrived too late. Mom was left with 2 sons, a mortgage, and the kind of grief that never really goes away. She picked up a second job, waitressing on weekends. I watched her leave the house at 11 at night and come back at 7 in the morning, and I made myself a promise. I was going to change our lives. I was going to make sure she never had to work like that again. My brother Derek was 3 years older than me. He had always been the favorite, and honestly, I understood why. He was the firstborn, the one who made my parents feel like they had truly made it in America. When he was born, they were still struggling to learn English and find decent work. By the time I came along, things were a little easier. Derek got the extra attention, the extra chances, the benefit of every doubt. And for a long time, that was fine with me. I loved my brother. I looked up to him. But Derek and I were different in ways that became more obvious as we got older. He started college with big plans to study business, but he dropped out halfway through his sophomore year. He said the professors did not understand his vision. Then he got a job at a car dealership that lasted 4 months. He quit because the manager was too controlling. Next was a position at a tech startup where he was supposed to be in marketing. That lasted 6 weeks. He said his coworkers were jealous of his ideas. There was always a reason. The job was beneath him. The boss was incompetent. The company culture was toxic. And every single time, Mom was there with an open wallet and open arms telling him that he just had not found the right opportunity yet. Meanwhile, I was grinding. I finished my business degree in 3.5 years while working part-time at a coffee shop. I graduated and immediately got a job at a small tech startup that paid me $45,000 a year. It was not glamorous. I shared a tiny apartment with 2 roommates in a neighborhood where you could hear every argument through the walls. I ate ramen 4 nights a week and learned to make 1 chicken breast stretch across 3 meals. But I was learning. I was watching how the company operated, how they acquired customers, how they handled their finances. I was building a network, making connections, studying everything I could about software and sales, and what made businesses succeed or fail. At 23 years old, I saw something that nobody else seemed to notice. Small businesses were drowning in inventory management. They were using outdated systems, or literal spreadsheets, to track thousands of products across multiple locations. It was chaos, and it was costing them serious money. I realized I could build software that would solve this problem, something affordable and user-friendly that actually worked. So, I started coding at night after my full-time job. 3 hours of sleep became normal. My roommates thought I was losing my mind. 6 months later, I had a working product. It was rough, but it was functional. I convinced 5 small business owners to try it for free in exchange for feedback. They loved it. Two of them offered to pay me immediately. That was the moment I knew I had something real. I quit my job. My mom was furious. She begged me to keep the stable paycheck, to not risk everything on some crazy dream. Derek laughed in my face. He said, "You are going to fail just like everyone else who thinks they are special." I borrowed money from friends. I maxed out 3 credit cards. I took out a personal loan that terrified me every time I thought about it. The first 2 years were brutal. I was working 90-hour weeks doing everything myself because I could not afford to hire anyone. Sales, marketing, customer service, coding, bookkeeping, all of it. I lived on $5 meals from the grocery store. I did not have health insurance. I did not have a social life. I had a dream and a laptop and a desperate need to prove that I was not going to fail. Year 3 was when things started to shift. I landed a contract with a retail chain that had 50 locations across 3 states. It was the break I had been praying for. Suddenly, my revenue jumped from barely staying afloat to actually profitable. I hired my first 3 employees. I got an actual office space instead of working from my apartment. I could finally breathe a little bit. By year 5, I had 25 employees and we were pulling in $2 million a year in revenue. By year 7, which is now, I have 60 employees and we are on track to hit $8 million this year. Last year, I bought my mom a house. A real house with a backyard and a garage, and enough space that she did not have to worry about the rent going up. I paid off all her debts. I set up a monthly allowance so she would never have to work again. When I handed her the keys, she cried for an hour straight. That moment made every sleepless night, every missed meal, every sacrifice worth it. I had kept my promise. I had changed our lives. Derek was still living with Mom. He was 33 years old, unemployed again, and contributing exactly nothing to the household expenses. But I did not say anything. I figured he would find his way eventually. I was too focused on growing my company to worry about my brother's inability to hold down a job. The request came out of nowhere on a Thursday evening. Mom called and asked if I could come over for dinner on Saturday. She said she had something important to discuss. I thought maybe she wanted to talk about planning a vacation or something nice like that. I showed up with a bottle of wine and a good mood. Derek was already there, sitting at the kitchen table with his arms crossed, and this look on his face like he had just bitten into something sour. We exchanged awkward hellos. We had not really talked much in the past few years. Every conversation felt strained, like we were reading from a script neither of us had memorized. Dinner was tense. Mom kept glancing between us, with this nervous energy that made my stomach turn. After we finished eating, Mom cleared her throat. "I have been thinking a lot about family and fairness lately," she said. I had no idea where this was going, but I already did not like the tone. She started talking about how family is supposed to take care of each other, how we are all we have in this world, how blood is thicker than water. I was nodding along, agreeing with all of it, waiting for her to get to the point. Then she said it. "Hassan, you have been so blessed with your success. You have built something incredible. But you have to remember that you did not do it alone." I felt my jaw tighten. I absolutely had done it alone, every single piece of it. But I kept quiet and let her continue. "Derek has been struggling," she went on. "He needs stability. He needs security. And I think the fair thing, the right thing, is for you to give him 50% of your company." I actually choked on my coffee. I thought she was joking. I laughed, waiting for her to crack a smile and say she was messing with me. But she was completely serious. Her face was set in stone. "Mom, what are you talking about?" I managed to get out. She leaned forward. "Derek is your brother. Family takes care of family. You should share what you have built." I looked over at Derek. He was staring down at the table, not meeting my eyes, not saying a single word in my defense, just sitting there like he had known this was coming. My heart was pounding in my chest. I tried to stay calm. I tried to use logic. "Mom, I built this company from absolutely nothing. I worked 80-hour weeks for 7 years. I risked everything. I took all the debt. I made all the sacrifices." She cut me off. "And Derek would have helped if you had asked him." I nearly lost it right there. "I did ask him," I said, my voice rising despite my best efforts. "I asked him multiple times in the first year if he wanted to come work with me. He said he was not interested. He said startups were too risky, and he wanted something stable. Mom shook her head like I was remembering it wrong. You made him feel unwelcome. You always thought you were smarter than him. I could not believe what I was hearing. I was being rewritten. My history was being twisted into some narrative where I was the bad guy for working my tail off. I took a deep breath and offered a compromise. How about this? I will give Derek a job at the company. A real job with a good salary and benefits. He can prove himself and maybe work his way up. Mom rejected it immediately. He does not want to be your employee. He deserves to be a partner. 50-50. The number hit me like a physical blow. 50%. Half of everything I had built. Half of the decisions. Half of the profits. Half of the control. Given to someone who had never shown up for anything in his entire life. Mom, that is not reasonable, I said, trying desperately to keep my voice level. You cannot just hand someone half of a business because you feel like it is fair. That is not how the world works. Her expression hardened. She looked at me with eyes I did not recognize. Then maybe you have forgotten what family means, she said coldly. Maybe you have become too selfish. That word cut deeper than anything else. Selfish. I had bought her a house. I sent her money every single month. I had given up relationships and health and years of my life to build something that could take care of all of us. And I was selfish because I would not hand half of it to my brother for free. I am giving you an ultimatum, Mom said, and her voice had this finality to it that made my blood run cold. You give Derek 50% of your company, or I am done with you. I will not have a son who abandoned his family. I stared at her, waiting for her to take it back, to say she did not mean it. But she just stared back, unflinching. You have 1 week to decide. After that, do not call me. I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking. I looked at Derek one more time, hoping he would say something, anything, to stop this insanity. He finally looked up at me, and there was something in his eyes. Not guilt, not sympathy, just this cold expectation, like he had already decided this was his and I was just being difficult. I left without another word. That week was the longest of my entire life. I did not sleep. I could not focus on work. I kept replaying the conversation in my head, trying to figure out where it had all gone wrong. I called Mom 3 times. She did not answer. I sent her text messages saying we needed to talk, that we could figure something out. Nothing. Just silence. I met with my lawyer to understand the legal implications. She laid it out plain. If you give him 50%, he has equal say in every decision. He can demand a salary. He can block initiatives. He can even sell his shares to someone else without your approval, depending on how you structure it. The idea made me sick. I would be tied to Derek for the life of the company, and he could sink everything I had built with one bad decision or one selfish move. I kept thinking about all the nights I had worked until 3 in the morning, all the times I had skipped meals to save money.